Sue, hello, and thank you for joining the Parents Around the World Summit. How have you been?
I've been fantastic, thank you. And I'm really honored to be here today. So thank you for inviting me to come along.
Thank you for joining. I know that you've done so much work with families and you have provided so much insight and experiences to me, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. And I will start by giving you the floor and asking, what are some of the obstacles that parents and families face?
I love this question. And I think I'm really rattling a few cages at the moment because I believe that there are five big mistakes that people are making, and it's contributing to increasing anxiety levels and levels of trauma within homes. So I prefer to describe it as ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences. That's really what it is. So I believe that we're making five big mistakes that are contributing to that. So the first mistake is that our whole society tends to be relying very heavily on therapists to fix troubled kids. So, what I mean by that is instead of empowering the parents and supporting them, giving them the support that they need, that really creates real change, we're sending the child off elsewhere to an external place, and we're hoping that that person will fix that child. And when we look at a pie graph, if a child is lucky enough to have an hour a week with a therapist, it only makes up 0.6% of their time they're spending with that adult. The rest of their week, they're spending their time in the responsibility of educators and parents and some others. So when we look at this, at least a minimum of 78% of a child's life is spent in the responsibility of their parents. Yet we're relying on 0.6% over there in a therapy room that is not even like what is really going on in the home. So what I've found is that when we help families with what's going on in the home, that's where all the difference happens. That's where all the change happens, because the parents are dealing with the everyday struggles, the everyday things that are happening. And unless they've got the tools to be able to deal with that, what happens is their child goes to a therapist, comes home and slips straight back into the family way, the family patterns. And most of it comes undone unintentionally. It's not the family's fault. I'm not blaming anybody here. It's not the parents' fault. And unknowingly, unconsciously, we're running patterns all the time. Unconscious patterns that we have developed over years because of our own life circumstances and the beliefs that we've developed over time. So that's not going to change in a therapy room over there with the child. So it doesn't really make sense, does it? That we're relying on therapy. And this is why it's so slow and ineffective. Even if the therapist is a wonderful person, because I know the most beautiful therapists, they're all well-intentioned. This is nothing against therapists. They're trapped in a system as well that only gives them the opportunity to work with the child and doesn't give them the opportunity to work with the parents either, predominantly. And I know that sometimes parents get a bit of help, but majority of the time we look at child with the problem, child better see a therapist. That's the general way our mental health system works. Child has a problem, child needs help. over there without, so we're leaving parents out of the loop. And this is absolutely letting families down. And it is really setting kids and families up to fail, which is a huge problem, isn't it? Yet when I work with families and I work with the parents predominantly now, I barely even need to see the child. Sometimes I never ever meet the child. But when I work with the parents, the difference is enormous and it's fast. And we've got this whole myth that it's going to take a long time. Well, guess what? It doesn't. It's quick and it's effective. I've had some families join me just in the past couple of weeks. Every single one of those families has said they've noticed massive shifts in 2 or 3 weeks, massive shifts, just because they were getting the right help. So I wonder, I would love the world to wake up to this whole concept that sending the child to a therapist doesn't work. It's ineffective unless we're changing what's going on in the home. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Then I guess my follow-up question to that would be then, why is it important for the families to work towards this, not only for the parents, but for the children as well?
Beautiful. I love this question because it kind of leads and segues beautifully into the second mistake that people are making when it comes to changing things and improving things for kids and our future generations. I mean, we want to break generational cycles. That's what I'm on about. So the first thing is that we need to shift our internal operating system. So us parents, and look, I want to just clarify, I made all these mistakes. And that's how I know what doesn't work. And I really want people to know that I know this is where I can pick patterns and support families because I've been there. I've experienced it. So what I've learned, and I remind myself of this every single day still, that trying harder, gathering more tips and strategies and doing more and thinking that will change things doesn't work because we're still operating from the same internal system. So we're looking for external things, people, strategies, tips to solve the problem, but we're not going inward and looking at our own state. And there are two states that humans are in. They're either in surviving or thriving. Surviving is fear-based. Thriving is love-based. Now, most of us are unconsciously in a survival state for most of the day. We're in reactivity. We're unconsciously, automatically functioning. However, if we've got some negative results happening in our life and things coming up, we're often looking out there thinking that's the problem, like our child's the problem or the government's the problem or whatever, and we're not looking inward. So when we're in a survival state, we're stuck being run by an outdated internal operating system. And I like to describe it as like we're trying to be, you know, the rotary dial phones that we used to use. We're trying to be that, but we're expecting performance of an iPhone 17. And we need an upgrade. We need a serious upgrade. Because if we keep operating in our old way, we're going to keep getting the same old results. And we're not adapting to the modern world that our child is living in. So this surviving state is a state of fear. And what happens is we develop this sense of it's not safe to be me. I better change myself and adapt so that I'm accepted. And when children are growing up, tell me a child that hasn't needed to adapt to their parents' emotional limitations. So we as children learn I must change myself so that mummy or daddy are happy, or that so that I fit in, so that there's peace, so that there's harmony. But that changing of ourselves takes us further and further away from our authentic self. And we create what I describe as our fear self and our false self. And that's when we've got a fear program running underneath. So we learn as kids, I must limit myself to meet my parents' society's needs and limitations. And a beautiful client of mine, she told me about her daughter the other day, and her daughter was seriously mentally unwell when they came to me just a few months ago. Had 90 hospital admissions for suicidal attempts and self-harming, 90 in 12 months before they came to me. This young girl now said to her parents the other day, she said, I don't have to squish myself anymore.
That is absolutely a wonderful story because, as you mentioned, we need to make changes, and sometimes those changes can be scary
Mm-hmm,
for a lot of people, right? Like you were doing something the same way, whether it was
mm-hmm,
right or wrong, for so long
mm-hmm.
that you convince yourself, well, even if it's wrong, I don't want to change. And that leads me, I guess, to my final question to you. If I were to give you three wishes, Aladdin's genie lamp, right? What are three things you wish people knew about making the necessary changes to
Mm.
themselves so they can improve the life of their families, and why?
Okay, beautiful. So I think the first one would be to remember that love is the antidote to fear. So if we're not in a loving state, we're in a survival state. So will our children be. And when we're limited with our ability to love, this behavior in our children is displayed as unacceptable behavior because they feel completely dysregulated because mum or dad or whoever else is around us is dysregulated themselves. So their behavior we're inaccurately measuring as bad instead of looking, I wonder why they're not feeling the love. Oh, maybe I need to look inward. And maybe the state I'm in, if I shift that and I bring that into me being in a loving state, your child won't be so resistant and defiant because they're feeling loved, which is all kids are wanting. That's all they're asking for, to feel loved, seen, Understood.